Just finished up this rack build, and I'm going to go over how I use the Neuro Quad Cortex in a racked environment, either wired or wirelessly, with redundancy and the ability to adapt built in, while also being able to accommodate the length of cable to my feet on any size stage. So as a little prerequisite, I went into this rack wanting to solve 3 challenges. The first, I just like to rack my gear. Especially my Quad Cortex. Maybe you have a band member stage left who has been known to kick over a drink or two, or maybe you just play some awesome shows and they're super rowdy and fun, and you just want to protect your gear. Additionally, for me, I actually just hate having to run a cable all the way to the front of the stage and then all the way to the back of the stage just to get to my amp, so why not just put them all in one box with super short cables, keep it nice and clean. Number 2, I want to be able to use my rig either wired or wirelessly every night. I want to have the decision of which to use, but I also want to have the redundancy to easily flip over to the other almost unnoticed to the audience if something does go wrong. Wireless specifically for us is a little unique because we have all of our units racked in another rack. That rack can either live all the way stage left or all the way stage right, sometimes in monitor world. And that rack is shared with other members of the band, so there's a combiner on there. And we tend to accommodate for the guitarists as far as cable length goes, since they have to run kind of to and from it with their pedal boards. So I just told them that rack can go wherever it needs to be, and this rack can go wherever it needs to be. And I can connect to them with a little trick I found to use XLR, and they say you can go up to 300 feet. Generally, I'm not going much over 50, but it's just nice to know that I can connect to it wherever it is, so I'm not handcuffed to a cable length, which is huge for me. On that same note, I want to have a tuner at my feet every night, no matter where we are. So I've also built a tuning system that goes with the remote system for the quad. That runs in a 50-foot loom right now out to my feet, wherever we are. I don't have to worry about it not being able to reach if I did have to put this rack off the stage or whatnot. And finally, a big thing for me is for everything to fit in this rack. So it's really important for me to be able to fit the loom, the foot controller, and any of the cables I need to run this every night in its own drawer, so I don't have to bring multiple boxes to a show. So with those 3 things in mind, here's what we got. As far as the signal flow, it comes in here from either a wired signal or a wireless. Hits the Mesa, because we do want some stage sound, rumbles the stage a little bit. I love these Mesa subways. They can go down to 2 ohms, 800 watts, in addition to what I send to front of house. Cool little front face here. But the real magic in how this all works is, of course, going to be on the back. So let's plug it in and see how this all works. So the other cool part about this is the ability to use wireless, and not only use wireless, but to not also be handcuffed by any sort of cable run. Because when you use a wireless system, generally, you use a guitar cable that comes out of the back. Generally, you don't want those guitar cables being more than 25 feet. You can buffer them. I know if you put like a Boss tuner around there. But when you're playing a really big stage, you'd be surprised how little real estate 25 feet gets you. So instead of buffering and all that, there are other solutions from Radial and such that can turn a balanced cable, like an XLR, into an unbalanced cable. So on the back of that same wireless unit, you'll have an XLR out or an instrument out. So we just take that XLR out and run it as far as we need into this jack here. On the other side of that box, it converts it to an unbalanced guitar cable, like an instrument cable, to which I run maybe a foot or 2 into the Quad Cortex. Now that, of course, does come along with having to set your line level correctly on the wireless, and you can easily do that in Pro Tools. You can match line level. This also has a trim here. So there is one extra step that you kind of just do once and set it and forget it, of matching the right line level. But essentially, I can run wireless here with that XLR cable as long as it needs to go, and goes right in. I also have the ability to go wired, as we talked about before. Now to the back panel. So this is the only section of inputs and outputs I deal with every night going into this rack. So just going through the panel here, the first one is bass wired. This is going to work exactly the same way as plugging directly into the quad. The other end of that is actually connected to the input 1 on the Quad Cortex. Front of house DI, that's all I send to the house. That is connected to the output of the Quad Cortex for DI. And then the next 3 are actually what runs to my feet wherever I might be. So tuner, power to my floorboard, which is essentially just a MIDI controller and a tuner, and then the MIDI controller, which is really what's going to remote control everything here. So I have the decision of plugging into the bass wired or to the Radial reamper, which is into input 2, and those are both connected to the quad. But every night, these are the only 4 or 5 jacks I plug in quickly and unplug, and they're all in a loom, so all together in just one thing you have to wrap up and stores right in the drawer. So it all goes together, everything is in one box, everyone's happy. And for me, the patch panels are super important because there's a lot of jacks on the Quad Cortex. Don't want to be climbing in and out of there with a cell phone flashlight, trying to find the right one, plugging it into the wrong one. So essentially, you just do all that stuff beforehand, close it up in the rack, and just deal with the patch panel. If something does go wrong, of course, I can open the hinge door here and easily get to the back of the quad. You also don't want to rack your things so that you need a screwdriver to get to them, so keep that in mind. But yeah, patch panels are really it for me on any rack. They're quick to set up, quick to break down, and also the labeling on them is huge. It can help someone that has never seen your rack before be able to hook it up pretty quickly. So there's been times I've come out from dropping my stuff off and the front of house DI is already patched because it was pretty clear to the sound engineer, even if it's not our own, what that is. So, and you'll come to find that taking a second at home to label these things, organize them, make sure nothing's tangled or getting damaged cable-wise in the rack will go such a long way in a live environment for both you and anyone helping you with your gear. So now to what's under my feet on stage. I love the RJM Mastermind LT. It has everything I want. It has a text screen so that I can be sure I'm on the right patch. It also has customizable colors for each of the buttons, and the customizations you can do with this are endless. So the way I have this set up with Quad Cortex is the bottom row is going to be all my scenes. They're actually mapped to E, F, G. Actually, technically, this is a scene 2. That's H. And then I have my tuner on scene A. So just all scenes, basically, that using the quad in scene mode. And RJM makes it super easy to do this. They actually have built-in commands, so you don't have to go searching through the manual for Quad Cortex. You can just say, I want scene A. And that way, most of the board, the bottom half and the top left, stay exactly the same no matter which preset I'm on, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to worry about fixing 10 presets, if you change something. So the way I have it programmed is I essentially use 2 presets, and those are an identical copy of each other, but one for wireless and one for wired. So every night that I set up, I have the adaptability of not only making that decision on stage, and that's where the patch panel came in, depends which one I want to use, but I also have the redundancy of having both essentially wired every night. So if we play a really big show and I want to use wireless for it, I'll pop over to the Shure and I'll have a cable still connected to the back of my Quad Cortex, all ready to go, and I can pop through the 2 scenes. So on the screen there, you see the Cortex control. So if I throw in the wired, you don't really notice anything because it didn't change. But here I can go through all my scenes right here. I also have a scene dedicated to the tuner. So we saw that runs out the effects loop of my Quad Cortex. And the way that I found I can do that on a long cable run is by using an effects loop in my signal that is only activated on one scene. So you see that when I turn on the tuner here, you start getting all these crazy notes from my crazy computer electronics, and because nothing's plugged in. But you'll see that will completely go away when I switch to another scene because it's not sending information there anymore. That tuner also, as you can see on the screen, mutes my output 3 and my output 2, which is where I send signal. So with the combination of Quad Cortex's crazy options and possibilities through routing, combined with the RJM's awesome programming, you can pretty much tell this thing to do almost anything you want. It's really a cool setup. You see that I'm going through the scenes here, and if I want to switch, the wired here, and if I want to go to the Shure, I can go to wireless. I have WL in the patch, Might be a subtle change on the screen there, but you see it's going from 27G over to 27H, which has the WL in it. And then the same scenes are applicable there because it's a carbon copy of that preset. So again, redundancy and the ability to decide which one I want to use every night makes RJM and Quad Cortex a win for me until Neural decides to make a racked version, and this probably will all go away. Come on, Neural. And to put the tuning into simpler terms, an effects loop is placed on my signal chain that is only enabled on the A scene. When I go to the A scene, you see that light up, and you'll see that the effects loop send is out, but also the return is completely off. So coming out of the effects loop send is an instrument line that I can essentially have as long as I want or need to go to my front of stage. That is just kind of a block in the chain here, and both outputs are muted. When I want to go back to a main signal, I can turn that on. Thanks for checking this out, and hopefully this helps someone out there looking to tackle the same challenge.